Welcome back to Cantina Chronicles. We're here with special guest Jason joining us on the pod today.
Greetings, friends.
Our beloved friend and of the pod, and always kind of there to talk Star Wars with us at all times. And we're so grateful for you to be here and talk some Star Wars Unlimited with us today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, guys.
It's great to have you, man. This is your show, guys. Jason very kindly yesterday taught me how to play Star Wars Unlimited. I played my first game yesterday, kinda. We did sort of like face-up cards and went through some strategery, and I think it took me about 90% of the game to learn, and then 10% I was playing towards the end. But I got it. I think I got it in one game, and I'm ready to party. But fantastic game, man. Star Wars Unlimited.
It's so good, yeah. From Fantasy Flight,
Yep.
They just knocked it out of the park with the gameplay, the art, the heroes, the leader characters, the units, like everything about this game is just incredible. And
The theming is fantastic. All the theming for the leaders are incredible. Like, they did such a good job.
That's what struck me most. So we played, it was like a Mando set. So I had the Mando set and Jason had Moff Gideon. And it was just like you could tell it was a very distinct play style. It was, and you could see how the units work together, and it was very a Mandalorian like way to play. And it was like really kind of, it's sort of like you don't have many offensive units. It's very defensive, and you get like random power-ups and things like that. And really, really, really cool. And then of course Moff Gideon he had a star fleet and just like leveled me. As is actually pretty accurate, I think, in a lot of cases.
Yeah, that's the starter deck for Shadows of the Galaxy, which is the set we're currently on right now, with set 3 ready to be unveiled and in November, I believe. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, November is the next set coming out.
Very cool.
Which they've already started teasing cards and new mechanics and stuff for, so super excited about that.
And I feel like the first set, Sparks of Rebellion, is incredible. It basically encapsulates the entire Galactic Civil War, all the characters in there, the classic, characters in the original trilogy. You have Leia, Vader, Luke, so many cool leaders, even from Rogue One. You have Cassian, you have Krennic. You have Jyn Erso. There's so many cool leaders just in that first set, and sort of encapsulates the rebellion and sort of the Galactic Civil War, and the original trilogy as a whole. And then this set now, Shadows of the Galaxy, sort of incorporates the underworld, smuggling, bounty hunters, bounty cards that are really, really cool. That you basically upgrades you place on your opponent's units, and then collect those rewards, which is very cool. Smuggling, which is a whole new mechanic to the game, just drastically changing the game. And it's what's really cool about this set is that it is it's actually a test for sort of exploring a theme rather than an era of the timeline. It's exploring the idea of the underworld, whereas the next set, Twilight of the Republic, is going to explore the Clone Wars and the fall of the Jedi Order, and there'll probably be an Order 66 card. There'll probably be all these really cool cards that sort of encapsulate what the prequels were, and all the big important iconic moments from those films, sort of encapsulated in the game, which they've done so well. And I just want to jump into sort of like what's our favorite cards that we've seen, we've played, the decks that we've been building, and sort of like if our experience with the game thus far, and whatever we've done sort of like in terms of organized play. I don't know if you've done any organized play, Jason, but I'd love to hear what
I've done a little bit. I think for the listeners, I kind of want to give them also a kind of more direct overview of like how the game functions, because it's also a game, like I think I mentioned this the last time I was on with you guys. It doesn't really play like any other card game that you've ever really played, where you take your turn and you do 5, 6, 7. If you're playing Pokemon, that's like 18 things before you hand over your turn to the next person. This game is very fast paced, very strategic. It really feels like you're having a war in the stars where you go for each phase, each round, which is called a phase. You go turn by turn, action by action. I do one thing, you do one thing, and we go back and forth, and it's like a constant struggle, and it's constant thinking, constant strategy, and it's like it's so much fun compared to every other card game that I've played. And I think that's also been a big reason why it's kind of taken off as much as it has. Just all the flexibility. Like at first, I was a little iffy about the sets being as big as they are because 250 cards per set is typically like you don't see that in most card games. And yeah, there are only 2 sets in, but the fact that they're so spread out and the versatility that you get from all of these cards so far is phenomenal.
Yeah.
The theming is great, like I mentioned before. It really feels like an actual Star Wars game.
It does feel really fast, man, especially like for me, like a new learner, like knowing what all the cards do and then like all the various mechanics and all the add-ons. And I understand probably comparatively it's not that much for other card games. But it takes. I mean, you're playing all the time. You got to keep your head in the game, thinking about what the other person's doing. It was fast. It was fun. It felt very Star Warsy. It felt very thematic, very canonical for my proclivities with Star Wars, where it's like I'm keeping it canon, baby.
Yeah, not only is it highly strategic, they've also done such a good job sort of capturing the characters and the sort of character identities in Star Wars that we know and we love, these archetypes and these iconic characters like the Emperor and sort of what they do in the field, which is the Emperor takes control of a unit, right? Like he's sort of the mastermind sort of leader character.
Yeah.
You have Vader, who's always hitting people and doing damage constantly, sort of an aggressive character. And aggression is one of the aspects in this game. And this game is actually broken up into 4 aspects, which is cunning, control, command, and aggression. And then there's heroic and villainy cards as well. It's sort of that mix of cards is sort of what you're using to develop a strategy to take out the opponent. And it's quite compelling because you can even double up on some of these aspects to pay less for a card. And that's incredibly cool. But again, just how they capture the identity of the characters is very, very cool. Like Luke is constantly shielding people. You have Leia is allowing 2 rebels to attack at a time. You have new heroes like Bosk, who collects double the bounty. Kylo Ren, highly aggressive character that tries to strike the opponent immediately. They've just captured sort of the characters in the gameplay, which is something I don't see a lot of. I mean, Outer Rim, another game that Fantasy Flight developed, is also incredible in that regard. Mm-hmm. But just again, Fantasy Flight just doing incredible work. So just really want to shout out this game. And
So not sure if you wanted to hit like the greater meta or just talk about what we're currently kind of playing to give people a little bit of.
Let's talk about what we're running, right? Let's do it.
All right.
I don't know who wants to go first here. I know Ben started.
Yeah, I mean, one game. Now. Yeah, okay. I played Mandalorian. It was great. Din Djarin just buffs.
Don't underestimate that deck. I've got some. What is it called? The one with Tarkin. It's like Evidence of a Crime. I have 3 of those. I'm gonna throw those your way, Ben. Just put that in your Mando deck. I promise you.
It's a wild deck, dude. I would love a rematch on that. Sort of knowing a little bit more what I did. It's tough because it's like you're it's very defensive and. It's you get buffs on upgrades like Din Djarin, but it's like you're constantly behind the 8 ball, 7 samurai facing off against like a whole battalion, and that's the way it plays. Like you've got a shot. Like I mean, I drew first blood, with your help, Jason. But still, But I was in it till I wasn't. I made a couple of mistakes early because I didn't know what I was doing, and I still don't. But I think I know a little more for next time. Then it'll be a blast. But that.
And this is such a fun game to learn because Jonathan, the other listener of the podcast, I think he watched Grant and I play one game, then just sat there and binge watched YouTube videos and learned to play on his own, and now he's like making his own decks. He's like all in.
Oh yeah, I've been overwhelmed by Jonathan's Chewbacca deck. It's it was quite something to behold in set 1. Now set 2, we're all kind of reinventing our decks. So Jason, what are you currently? I know the 2 decks you were rocking. I just want to know what you're currently sort of.
I mean, I'm still gonna keep rocking one of them. I'm a huge Cassian Andor fan.
Nice.
So one of the things when we played Ben that you didn't get to experience is Saboteur. Everyone in that deck is Saboteur, which basically means he can sneak behind shields, ignore shields, he can ignore Sentinel, he can literally do whatever he wants on the field, and just about every card that I'm running in that deck can run Sentinel. Wow. And it's very aggressive, very fast, but I love playing it.
There are 2 new cards that would go great with Cassian in set 2, which is the Cripple Authority. Like if you run a slow Cassian and you don't ramp, and you use Cripple Authority, which is you draw a card if someone has more resources than you, your opponent has more resources, and they have to discard a card from hand.
Woof.
Yep. And then you also do damage during turn, and you draw another card, and you're just drawing like crazy. And then there's a new ship, obviously, that has Saboteur, aggression heroic ship that has Saboteur in set 2. That's gonna fit perfectly in a Cassian deck. So I'm scared of Cassian. If someone wants to do that, I'm terrified.
Yeah, there's a few things that I'm going to work with that, but I've also been, of the new leaders, I'm trying to make Fennec Shan work.
Sweet.
Because Fennec's ability lets her bring in something that's cheap and give it ambush, even if it doesn't have ambush.
So good. And if you, that's one of the best keyword abilities in the game, basically. It's the second you have a card in hand, it has immediate value on the field in terms of just immediately knocking into their board present, your opponent's board, and ambush has saved me and I've won the game with ambush so many times with just Emphas Nest and Cloud Riders and sort of hitting at the right time.
That's a hot tub there, Emphas Nest and Fennec Shan. There we go. That's a good party. I like those 2 together.
It's actually a great show. Where's that show at? Where's the Emphas Nest sort of like Fennec Shan team?
I think that I don't know. She probably they must overlap. They're in the world together in the Star Wars. Yeah, among the stars together.
Yeah, Fennec Shan's that's so cool, Jason. I'm really interested in that leader. I just haven't dabbled in too much cunning ambush, other than in the Luke deck that I already have that has some cunning. And I was just like, let's throw in some Emphas Nest. I would love to see a dedicated sort of Fennec, Emphas, constant ambush situation.
What are your big
Okay, all right. I run 2 decks. Mono green Palpatine and mono yellow Boba Fett. Those are the 2 decks I run. I can't get enough of them. There's kind of like I oscillate between them because one's sort of slow, which is the Palpatine deck, which I have to sort of bide my time and then take over the board later in the game after I've lost maybe 15 to 20 health on my base. It's really agonizing, and I don't advise that deck. You're gonna get hit. They're gonna take out your Sentinels and bash through everything, and then you have to kind of get to your Vaders and your Mauls and your Devastators later.
And what's your I guess here's a question for you, Ben. So I don't know if you know all of the leaders, but name a major character, and we'll tell you kind of like how viable they are as leaders if they currently exist.
Okay, and I assume this has to be the original trilogy.
The original trilogy or some of the Mandoverse.
Yeah, right, in the Mandoverse, and then obviously a little bit before
and sequel trilogy too.
Yeah,
like all the major characters are sequel trilogy.
Yeah, any character except for the original trilogy or sequel trilogy or Rogue One or Ancillary, like Solo.
Poe Dameron.
Best unit in the game.
He's
best
not a
unit
leader.
In the game.
He's not a leader, but he is like the best, most sought after card in the game.
No way,
now.
Really.
He's actually the priciest, I think, card on any sort of on eBay or on TCG Player. Like if you buy that single card, it's pretty expensive.
I think Vader is still worth more, but it's not by much. Like it's
And
not.
then what
a
is
It's
big
right there,
difference.
Vader and
Like,
Poe Dameron. It's
so
like
Poe is a
Grant's
pretty
2 favorite
yeah.
characters.
Yeah, he's a 5 cost card that is 6 power, 6 defense, and so he's very powerful for his.
Is he
for his
airborne or is he
placement
ground?
curve.
He's ground.
That's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, there's a ship called. I mean, his
ships there.
Black one.
It's a 6 cost red aggression ship, space unit, and it's you basically it's when played, I think you can discard your entire hand and draw 3 cards, and so it works perfectly with Poe, who actually uses 3 cards, discards cards to sort of manipulate the battlefield before he even attacks, which is so powerful. Like in terms of manipulating the opponent's board and then attacking, I have never. Honestly, most cards just ambush into other cards. What Poe does is sort of he totally manipulates. If they have upgrades on them, he strips the upgrades, and then he can hit and basically just dismantle your entire defense, which is very powerful in terms of. He's not a leader yet, which is interesting. So, I think Jason and I wanted to talk about like what leaders do, but he's not a leader.
That was the question, right? Ask if
there is a set I think called Jump to Lightspeed that was announced, set 4. It's the upcoming, and I there could be space. There's talk of space leaders in the future, and sort of creating more dynamic gameplay in space, which is very exciting.
Which I love the space stuff. I used to run a Thrawn deck, and I've been slowly making it all space and like no ground units except for like 1 or 2 things that just disrupt everything. Space and spaceships and all the starships are so
let's
much
do
fun.
2 more characters. Ben, name another OT sequel trilogy character.
Oh man, that I think is a leader. Han Solo. We'll just go basic.
Okay, so the funny thing is there's 2 Hans as leaders. There's the young Han from Solo, and then there's original trilogy Han. Both are fantastic.
Boba Fett and Han Solo were given the double leader sort of treatment, where both characters have had leaders in both set 1 and set 2, and young Han, incredible. Original trilogy Han, probably the best card in the game, I think, in terms of just looking at the value and what you get for getting an extra resource on certain turns and sort of being able to play above curve constantly. I can't. That's just, and I tried to do it myself, and it's very hard to stabilize that situation at times where you kind of are overspending and you play the Falcon and you're basically like a resource down but a resource up, but you're doing a lot of resource math kind of is in the back end, which is really cool.
Nice. That sounds fun. I imagine everyone has their own vibe, and
he basically creates a resource essentially, like an extra resource. Which is awesome.
That fits.
To play higher cost cards.
Right. That fits him. It's like he makes something out of nothing. Like that's his character.
And there's a lot of fun cards that you can add with him in set 2 that pull things from your discard pile. Because when you defeat the resource after you use the resource with him, it goes to your discard pile. So you can just discard whatever resource is going to be more beneficial for you to bring back later.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, lots of cool leaders in the 2 sets we have now. But I sort of wanted to do a leader prediction for set 3 before we jump off this topic to an extraordinary topic that I've been waiting to talk to Ben about for probably years. And and I'm so glad you're here, Jason, because we're gonna dive into the Force sort of after all of this and catch up on other sort of Star Wars talk that we usually, are committed to. And it's so. But firstly, I wanted to do a sort of like predictions for set 3 leaders, because that's the upcoming set. And then if you have any predictions for cards that were announced at Gen Con, we can sort of or any of the sets announced there, we can jump into those too if you have any ideas there. But I was just thinking set 3 might just be a fun one, just given that we know sort of the basis and the parameters of what's going on there. And also the 2 cards that have already been revealed are the leader cards, Ahsoka Tano and General Grievous. And this is, of course, Twilight of the Republic set during the Clone Wars. And so we're going to have a number of leaders in this set, and I'm so excited. I think a lot of us, Star Wars Unlimited players are just,
salivating,
chomping at the bit to sort of see what else is around the corner in this game. Yeah, I just want to jump into that. I did write down a bunch on our Discord, and I shared them with you guys. So I'll try not to like just go within that, but I jump do something sort of strange.
You also wrote that list before we saw any of the information from the third set, so yeah, I almost feel like because it's mostly Clone Wars based, I'll give you one that I would love to see as a leader. I want to see a leader Yoda.
Okay, that's possible.
Yes,
really want to see a leader Yoda, because right now there's a unit. I feel like he would stay vigilance, so that you could also play the unit with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
so that'd be a control sort of or vigilance. Yeah, sorry, vigilance.
Kind of control stall kind of deck with probably a bunch of restore in it. Yeah, that could be a lot of fun.
That's the way he plays in Battlefront. Yeah, a lot of restore.
Yeah.
I mean, I would. I'm going to throw Obi-Wan out there because, of course, I am. But I mean, if you're going to go by Clone Wars, it's like Ahsoka, Anakin, Obi-Wan, obviously, and then I mean Yoda, maybe Mace. Like, I don't know. This is like that would be your probably leader set if you're gonna, as far as Jedi go. But I don't know how many leaders you have in like a certain rollout. But so I'm pretty sure there'll be an Obi-Wan leader card with the 212th, and I don't know how he'd play. Probably awesome. But as far as like all the other mechanics go, I have no guess.
I could see Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars being command, being green.
I like that.
Sense, yeah.
General,
I flipped
General Obi-Wan.
Yeah, General Obi-Wan in the armor.
Yep.
No, I like the green. I like a green. I like a command Obi-Wan. That's cool. That's that's very neat. It's interesting.
What about you, Grant?
Well, there's lots of. I mean, there's.
You want the Maul deck?
No, I mean,
a Maul deck.
I don't. Well, there's going to be there has to be a Maul leader. I think when he is on Mandalore and it's Death Watch Maul, that is.
He should have been. He should have been an Underworld leader, man. That's like when he really didn't do anything
with sort of Underworld cards. Yeah, he definitely he might have Underworld and Mandalorian.
He could have a
sort of typing for his card. It's interesting, and there's no Dathomiri or like Night Sisters or anything like that yet. I think as keywords, but we are getting Massage Ventress. So, did you see it?
I don't know who they would ally with. They don't really have a faction, right? They got wiped out by the Separatists, but they definitely weren't with the Republic.
I'm hoping for a Jango Fett leader to tell you the truth, because
Jango
Fett has been just such an outstanding card in all the decks I've constructed, and just I love just playing as Boba Fett, and for Star Wars Unlimited to release a Jango Fett leader that sort of is a riff on Boba Fett's abilities, but sort of maybe just more advanced in certain ways, maybe more aggressive. That could be interesting.
Since you brought up Night Sisters, it'd be kind of fun to get a Mother Talzin.
Oh, that'd be yeah. I'm hoping for a Cham Syndulla card. That's what I'm hoping for.
That'd be cool.
It would have to be like a whole like Night Sister deck though, which would be really cool.
I was thinking I wanted a cunning Jedi, and I feel like Quinlan Vos could be a cunning Jedi sort of card.
Oh yeah, definitely. You can do a lot of fun things with the other Jedi as like units deployed, but yeah, Quinlan Vos would be like one of the coolest ones.
Yeah, I would love to run a double yellow, a mono yellow cunning, like a Jedi deck. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
Whew, to me, that would just be so cool. I would. I would have also disruption, and then I'd also be, coming in with Jedi lightsabers or something of some kind.
I could see Plo Koon being.
Ooh, that could be cool too. I would love a Queen Amidala card. I was thinking Padme Amidala would be cool, and sort of.
She'll be a leader.
The post, royal office character. Then I was like,
the senator
is so
position,
iconic, like the silhouette, and just when she was,
Yeah.
I don't know, and there's such a leader moment for her, especially just the way she's sort of carries herself in that first movie, and how she's speaking is just so commanding and powerful. And I would love a Queen Amidala card.
Do you want a Boss Nass leader card?
I wonder if they'll do a Boss Ness. I don't. I wanted Poggle the Lesser and Boss Ness and all these characters, but I'm like, I don't think they're going to do those leaders who are very specifically leaders, essentially. But I don't think they're going to.
Jar Jar was technically a senator, so
like, do you want Wat Tambor, the leader card? Like, yes.
No, I'm talking Gungans right now. Like, can you roll out a Gungan deck? Because that would be insane.
I mean, that would be awesome. But like the tokens that they've actually revealed thus far are like just clone troopers and droids. And you'd think that if they did a whole Boss Nest part of the game, that there would be like Gungan, soldiers as well.
The prequels were a long time, and my feeling is it's sort of like late Clone Wars. If it's like the fall of the Republic, then it's going to be late.
We'll definitely get a Count Dooku.
Late Clone Wars. They should do an early Clone Wars too, or like an early prequels. They could do a whole Phantom Menace like rollout. Would be wild. But yeah, I mean, if they did the first two movies together, that's where you could get your Jango and oh my gosh, what's her name? The Changeling.
How do you want? Zam Wessel.
Wessel, yeah.
That'll be. They will definitely be a unit of some kind.
The old Zam Wessel.
How do you want Count Dooku to operate? I mean, this should be the major sort of leader character of the Separatists, right? And
I feel like
exploit, like
he
huge
would probably
exploit
be. I think huge exploit, probably cunning, because that's his style.
That's true. Yeah. I like him. I love that I love him as cunning because he's a vigilance unit.
You know who I love as command?
I love command for that.
General Kalani.
Ooh,
who's General Kalani?
He's the tactical droid.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah, that would be so cool. Because I was thinking you'd do like TX-20, that commander droid that sort of like goes rogue or whatever. I was hoping that droid would like be a leader or something. I was just some commander droid of some kind.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, do you think Pre Vizsla will be a leader? It kind of doesn't make sense. It's not really a Clone War. It's not like a battle in the Clone Wars.
I feel like maybe in a later set, but I don't know about right now.
Anakin Skywalker are going to get a leader card?
Absolutely.
Aggression leader, like sort of a mirror of Vader. No,
totally
no
aggressive.
No cunning Anakin? No. Yeah, exactly.
No.
Jason's like, nah. It's like when Thrawn is a cunning card, like Anakin's just can't be a cunning card.
He's hammer meets nail.
Yeah, he's aggression.
Yeah.
What about command for Anakin?
I don't know.
Because don't you want Vader? It's like cool if it's almost like as he passes into Vader, it's an aggression card or something. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like if he was something else in. I don't know. There's something about just a double aggression. If you have both Anakin and Vader next to each other, you're like, they're both aggression cards. They operate in a similar way. Makes sense. Same person. Like, I wonder if
it would be more fun if it was.
He's more cunning here. He does like weird things where he exhausts units as he attacks or something. Like he's kind of doing all those things to like totally manipulate a battlefield or something because he's a show off. Maybe I don't know. Like I don't know the cunning. He's not a cunning. He's a show off essentially. So I don't know where that sits other than maybe cunning or aggression. But
yeah, I'm leaning more towards aggression for him just because that was his style.
That's true. Right.
He was in your face all of the time.
You're fast and loose. Yeah, he is who he is. All right, I have one for you. We've mentioned a lot of Mandalorians. What about Duchess Satine?
I like that.
That
Mandalorian synergy. Yeah. That could be great. If you do Maul, Pre Vizsla, and Duchess Satine, that's like enhancing all the Mandalorian cards that they just released in set 2, which is very cool for all those people who want to build those decks, which I've been tempted. I actually been tempted to build the Mandalorian sort of themed deck where it's and then use Evidence of a Crime, that card I told you about earlier, Ben. That's just sort of like you take other people's upgrades and put them on your guys, and it's sort of like
that would
disruptive that like it's the most disruptive thing I've ever experienced in these games. It's really upsetting, especially if they get like keywords activate or go online when they take things too. It's like it's a really cool deck, and if they had released more Mandalorian cards with this Clone Wars set, that could be so cool. So I'm there with you. That's just a team. That would be really cool. What about Admiral Trench?
I was trying to think of his name. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. The Tarantula General. Yeah, he's
a
fantastic.
Vigilance card, maybe a Vigilance General.
Or
I don't know. Or a
I think
he's a tactician.
I think Vigilance. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Vigilance. So sort of like, restoring and removal and things like that.
I think he might play more like an Andor card, sort of like, because he's deceitful and he has all this subterfuge.
Oh, so like maybe red, maybe aggression. Yeah. Sure.
I mean, you could be blue and still have Saboteur.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like a Saboteur sort of kind of person. I think that's sort of the thing. It's like he looks like a sitting duck, and then you're surrounded.
You actually don't really see a lot of blue Saboteurs. I don't think there is a blue Saboteur, so that'd be cool if they bring in some fun blues or different colors for different keywords.
I am hopeful we get a Mace Windu leader in this set.
Yeah.
I just love Mace Windu. Like, I would just love to build... I would love a Mace Windu leader and then use the 3 Mace Windu unit cards in the deck. Like, totally Mace Windu it.
Where he's just like, sometimes you just have to take care of things yourself.
Well, he's a very aggressive card. Like, he just ambushes people and then readies after he takes someone out, which is probably... I don't know, Jason, how you've experienced that, but it's like, it's game ending, essentially. It's like... It's like...
I mean, if you plan it right, you can clear a board with Mace. So it's like...
Yeah.
Wow.
Very good card.
How did Mace make it into the decks that are out already?
He's in set 1. There are some like weird kind of cards that made it into set 1 that aren't particularly original trilogy. Like Black One, which is Poe's ship, is from the sequel trilogy. There's Count Dooku's in there as a unit too.
General Krell,
Mace.
So confirmation that Mace Windu survives the fall.
Game. Ben, they thought
Pong Krell's already in the game.
Great set 1 card, and I have like 10
Colonel Kurtz. They put Colonel Kurtz in like just the middle of that. Okay.
Yeah, it's just in set 1 for some reason. But the art is incredible. Like it's one of those beautiful sort of hyperspace cards I have, which we didn't even talk about the hyperspace foil, sort of the rarity levels of these cards and the artwork and sort of how the borders are basically gone with the hyperspace cards, and you're able to see more of the art of the card, and it's so cool because there's little details that are just in the corner of these portraits of each character that are so cool, and
that makes it fun.
Really in terms of collecting. But what about an Aura Singh leader?
A leader?
Yeah.
Unit to me.
We need more
I would say
cards,
unit,
or like something to help with the synergy of the Underworld. Like, no?
What are you talking about? Did you see how much Underworld just came out? And there was a ton of Underworld in the first set too.
That's true. Are we done with
Wait for it.
I don't think we're done with Underworld, but I think we're gonna get set 3 is gonna be very much like they're bringing Separatists in. They're gonna bring more Jedis in because there's not a lot of Jedis right now. There's also not a lot of Sith, so they might tag. They're gonna tag Maul with Sith because I think he was Underworld in set 2. Yeah.
Saw Gerrera leader.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know if that's this run, but you could do young like on Alderaan.
Yeah, exactly.
Saw Gerrera, burgeoning revolutionary,
and then a Steela Gerrera unit that pairs with the leader, or Steela Gerrera.
Yeah, Steela Gerrera leader.
Yeah, either or.
That's the way it worked on Alderaan, right?
That's true. Yeah.
He was her second in command.
Yeah, that would be great, actually.
And then later you get like Full Metal Saw Gerrera in the like hyperbaric chamber suit.
Yep.
That would be fun. And then the Borg
Riff Tamsin, the shark character from the
Mon
Cala. invasion.
That's a deep cut. You pulled that out of your notes.
That would be a great leader, honestly.
Yeah, he was terrifying.
Newt Gunray.
Yeah.
Newt Gunray might be Newt Gunray will be like in an event, featured in the artwork of an event that does something.
Oh, man,
That's
all those leaders that were
trade blockade.
I love trade blockade. That's great.
Oh my gosh, that's
do trade blockade. Your opponent cannot resources on the next turn.
Yeah, ever. Yeah. Yeah.
Or trade blockades like
you
they
have
can't
no resources.
What if they can't take things from their exchange things from their resource to their discard or resource to the arena? Like they can't move the things around like we've been doing in this set too, which is so cool. Like just stalling any of that activity is so interesting. That would be so cool. All right, I mean, like Admiral, I don't know, Yularen, he's around in the Clone Wars, but I don't think you'd really, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense to do a card.
You've got a whole list, Grant. You're like,
I don't have
and this person, and this person.
Well, could you do a Chancellor Palpatine? Could you like?
I actually was thinking about that earlier today. If you play like a Chancellor Palpatine, that would be pretty cool.
That'd be very neat, because you'd be able to like manipulate both clones and separatists, basically.
Yeah. Right. It's like no matter what side you're on the wrong side. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right. Well, I think we can move past SWU conversation and get to another fun event. I won't call it the main event because it's a two-part of this equal weight, but this is a sort of main event. This is something I've been waiting to talk to you about for a while, Ben, which is just the Force, like our catch-up on the Force. You know, where are we now with the Force after the Acolyte, the Jedi? You know, the sacred text thus far, and sort of our feelings and thoughts, because just love talking.
It's sort of like ever evolving. It's like an ever evolving conversation that it's never going to end. Right? It's like we're going to keep getting facts about the Force and know less about it somehow. You know, like I think that's the way it's supposed to work, and it's going to go. But we keep getting more evidence, right? So our sort of picture of it changes over time. And I mean, you know, so there's a couple things going on here. We're thinking about the Jedi. We're always like the other on. So there's always two questions, sort of like, what is the Force, and what does it mean to be a Jedi? Like, what's like a true Jedi, right? And so we actually kind of wanted to talk about both of those things here today. But I mean, speaking about the Force specifically, I like a sociopath went through, and I just started like just mentally. I didn't like look at anything, just like off the dome. I started listing all of the Force things, like abilities that have been used, starting in the original trilogy, going through the sequel trilogy, and then I just sort of like at large thought about expanded universe, and I attributed them. I wasn't going to, but after our conversation the other day, Jason, I attributed them to light side, and dark side based on who used it first, or like where it showed up first. I came up with a bunch, actually. I still don't feel like I have half, but you know, and so I tried to look at the whole list and then sort of see like what does it mean to use the Force? Because we sort of like, they can use mind tricks, and they can do Force push, and they can jump real high, but like what is, you know, and I don't know if you want me to go through this. I'll just do too long didn't read. It's all about the mind. It's like mind over matter. You know, it's like in the original trilogy we saw a mind trick, we see like deflection, right, with like Luke, we see Force Ghost, which is like, I mean, that's a different plane of existence. Okay. There's like how, like you're a great pilot, you have like amazing reflexes, aim, force pull, telekinesis, you move things with your mind, telepathic communication with your mind, acrobatics. So there's like the physical aspect where it's like you get a little enhancement on your like basic things, but it's like mind over matter is pretty much like when you use the Force, it's like you have to draw it into your brain, find like peace, and then like deploy with extra effort by being one with the tides of the universe, the galaxy. So would you say that peak use of the Force is creation of something? Because
take for example the two things that I can think of offhand after coming off of the Acolyte and strongly suggesting Anakin and Osha and May being created, but other things is like Force lightning itself is created. It's not like the Force itself, because if it was the Force itself, it would just be a push, or it would be something like that. But you're creating an energy from something that's not inherently an energy.
Yeah, I think those are the distant outliers. I really think the Force is about like understanding at such a complete level that you can sort of manipulate the world around you, but it has to come like inward first before it goes out. Like Force lightning, it's like, I mean, it's in the air, right? There's energy in the air, and it's just sort of like, I mean, I don't really know it. And then it's like through anger, like somehow channels that sort of thing. But it's so much of it is like it has to be harnessed in the mind first before you can.
That's so interesting that you're talking about. Yeah, I like that you. I really like when you talk about the mind tricks, Ben, and sort of like the early establishing of the Force and sort of
that was
the early powers we see, and sort of what the cerebral nature, right, of the Force is very, very cool. I just think that coming at it from an angle of one's own mental discipline with the Force is just not really what the Force is. I don't think the Force is about the subject. I think the Force is outside someone, and so I just don't really understand someone trying to hone their own sort of mental understanding of their own Force powers when the Force is a larger sort of like it's almost like a will that runs through all the movies that actually like is connected to every little event that happens in all of the films. And when anytime time slows down, or anytime the story sort of halts and it gets operatic, it's the Force essentially. The Force is sort of outside people, and so it's interesting to talk about one's own mental discipline with using the Force. But in my opinion, it's like the will of the Force will dictate the fate of all characters in Star Wars, and that there isn't really it's kind of like determinism. Like there really isn't. You can't really escape your fate. You're kind of this archetype thrown into a myth, and it's too bad. It's just the Force is going to decide what happens, essentially.
So I guess going back to your thing about the nature of the Force itself, how would you kind of categorize it? Because in my head, I see the way that both the Sith view the Force and the Jedi view the Force. The Jedi view the Force as they are a vessel for the Force, but the Sith view the Force as a tool that they can use.
Yeah, and I wasn't talking about the nature of the Force, Grant. I was talking about like how it is quote unquote used. Almost like how does one manipulate? Like when you manipulate the Force, what does that mean? I'm a Jedi. What does it mean to be a Jedi to use the Force? And like how is it sort of how is it deployed and what's
it is mirror.
Right, but it manifests itself through the mind was kind of the point. But yes, 100% agree with you. It is the tide that pushes all boats.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah.
And I totally agree with what Jason just said too, where it's like manipulated. I mean, so here's just the original trilogy for the dark side that was used first. Intimidation, which is Dunmok. I forget where that is, but like I just know that's Dunmok is what it's called in Expanded Universe. But like
Jedi mind trick.
No, it's like the dark side. It's like trash talking, but like imposing the dark side will on your person and essentially terrorizing them.
Who does that? Darth Vader.
Vader does, yeah. Foresight, which I guess would be, and these are a little out of order here, so I apologize. But what's his name? Palpatine or Sidious always claims to sort of be able to see the future. Sense, it's sort of like Darth Vader can sense when Luke's around all of a sudden. Force choke, obviously. Telepathic object throw. Well, that's actually the first time we see it is when Vader is just pulling, pieces off the walls and in Bespin and throwing them at Luke. So it's like Force throw, which is like
10 out of 10. No, it's like
exactly
incredible.
Ubiquitous in Star Wars games. They're like, oh yeah, we're doing that. Force lightning.
Then they start ripping chunks off the hallway and start throwing it at the other character. And it's like, yep, that's in, because it's just incredible.
Yeah, that telekinesis is like, I mean, that's like a lot of what, when people use the Force, that's what they use. Lightning saber throw, like that's technically, if you're throwing an object like a boomerang and bringing it back and it's a lightsaber. I didn't even really get into lightsabers because they're like symbiotic with the Force and with a Force user. But obviously, like anything you do with that, it's there. And then there's a Force mind read too. Like, we think about it most probably with Kylo Ren, and like he has like a full mind probe where he can just get into your memories, which is like dark. Again, like it's a tool of the mind. But Vader uses it to discover Leia, right? In the original trilogy, he sort of probes and searches Luke's mind and discovers Leia there. Your thoughts betray you.
Right.
So those are all sort of dark side things, but again, it is more manipulation. It's more aggressive. It's like this also brought a lot. It was like, when Obi-Wan taught Luke to use the Force like a lightsaber, he just like, you start with those probes. It's all about defense. It's all about deflection. It's like never like attack. It was like, and I'm pretty sure he says that. It's like, it's never for attack. Yeah. It's always just for defense. Yeah.
I think you left Jedi mind trick off of that dark side list. That's my opinion. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Just because Jedi mind trick is imposing your will onto somebody else.
Yeah, it's pretty dark. Like, I mean, I did it because it was like, I was like, was it a light side person, or like, was it used by the light side or the dark side first? But you're right. Like, you could easily argue that like that's a pretty dark thing. But yet that is the keystone or the first benchmark of Force use that we see, which is just sort of like, oh, it's a good way to distract the weak-minded, which is also not very friendly to modern sympathies. But
so, what is the question about the manipulation of the Force? Is it that what is it like to utilize the Force, and sort of what that experience is like?
I mean, we said this off air, and I know this might be stupid, but it was like a weird quote that I heard that was sort of like, oh, it's not like we're Marvel superheroes here using the Force. And I think it was like for Andor, it might have been the Yord guy. Like, I don't, the actor who played Yord, I don't know. And it just got me thinking. I'm like, all right, well, are Jedi superheroes though? Like, I don't really know. And so it was like, you can run
Wait, this
through
is
all
interesting. So I want to,
powers, right?
Let's double click on that. I love that idea. That's super interesting. Is it sort of the direction of how Jedi are portrayed? Should it be more heroic? Is that what sort of like is you think is sort of in question, like the way that they're portrayed, essentially? Or is it more that like why aren't they by nature more heroic within sort of the story, the context of the story? You know what I mean? Like what's the debate in terms of like what's wrong with them just being sort of like peacekeepers and at bay with their powers and sort of pacifists? Like, what's wrong with that? Isn't that the actual doctrine?
I wanted to dive deeper on it. My point was that sort of like I think they're differentiated. I think Jedi are very clearly differentiated, but like in a world where like a lot of feature film storytelling is centered around superpowers, not just like Marvel or DC. Like it's other people that have it's always someone has some mystical power, like Mindhunter or something like that. Like that they have. I'm like, what really makes a Jedi different, and therefore more like the mythology, like sticking with this sort of idea of the monomyth.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to sort of like they're just silly superheroes running around in robes. It's like what differentiates them from all the other storytelling, and what is it, and what does it mean to use the Force?
Well, like they have a code, and they're part of an institution essentially, and it's not really like a superhero who just gets their powers and joins a superhero team, and there maybe is one government overseer. It's really just an order of monks essentially, and there's the doctrine that they follow and the dogma, and sort of it is about peace and serenity and being without the self, being selfless, protecting the weak, enacting justice. It's about all those things, but I would say that's what makes them different. They're sort of paladins or knight errant, characters, but just in a science fiction setting, which is so interesting. And sort of that's the secret sauce, essentially. That's Star Wars.
But what can you do when the doctrine, as we've kind of seen recently and have been talking about, is inherently flawed?
Yes.
Because there's also a lot of contradicting points going through like the entire Skywalker saga, because part of it is, it sounds like they don't want you to feel your feelings at all, but on multiple occasions they get told to search their feelings. So am I supposed to feel my feelings, or am I not supposed to feel my feelings? Am I supposed to bury it and hide it? And then there's the whole attachment thing that I wish Adam was here, because this would start an entire tirade.
But he's right.
If we were talking about attachment,
it's like you're supposed to be compassionate, but you're not allowed to be attached. But you're not allowed to love, and it's sort of like, okay, this.
But you're talking about a poetic retrofitting in a saga, like a space opera, essentially, of a storyline that has to be about the failures and the fall of the Jedi. Because Luke and Vader and that familial attachment is the ultimate counterpoint, the poetic counterpoint to denying attachment, withholding from attachment. Yeah. Like that's the point. That's like, so I don't even know why we really criticize what is essentially a space opera. Like it's supposed to be dramatic. It's supposed to have these echoes and
it's supposed to be human, but like Jedi aren't supposed to be.
But what's interesting is where we go now. That's what's so compelling, I think. And so I just can't. I want to dive into this with you guys, because like this is what I want to talk about, is basically, we know Luke's temple falls, but we know he probably has this newfangled understanding of the Jedi Order, right? And sort of what he can do to be different, and sort of based on Obi-Wan and Yoda's teachings, and essentially Anakin too, but by the sort of what's established in the canon in Return of the Jedi. It's these three are probably telling him things about how this can be different. Essentially, he establishes it falls, but now Rey is going to establish a Jedi Order, and so it's what fun we could have just sort of talking about what that could be and how she could benefit off the failings of the past and learning from these failings, and sort of building a new, maybe not like institution that's involved in policy making and nestled in with the government, but more of just like what this order needs to be is just essentially peacekeepers, but peacekeepers who are accepting of one another and are allowed to have attachment, but it can't be like, you need to also just learn, to be humble and not have hubris, and sort of like be a Jedi who uses their power for good. Like this is that part of the teaching could good probably be brought up rigorous trials or something, right? Like rigorous trials could keep people maybe outside of learning maybe the deeper knowledge, and then that could be a part of the system, essentially.
I think attachment is definitely something that's needed moving forward, and I also think the knowledge of how to properly process and use your feelings is needed, because in Star Wars, every species has feelings, and how they process those feelings ends up either pushing them to the brink or keeping them in line. And a lot of the time to keep them in line, you'd have to have almost like the wisdom of, somebody on the council who you can take this feeling of anger, process the feeling, and then let it go, as opposed to holding on to it because you don't know how to process the feeling. But if you hold on to it, then you start falling to the dark side. Like,
there's how you sort of navigate it.
Yeah, there's a big disconnect in how to process feelings. I feel like they teach a lot of doctrine, and what I would say to Rey is teach the doctrine, but teach them how to be people first. Because the most important thing is, as Jedi, you're here to serve each other, and you're here to serve the greater good. You're here to serve the Force. So why not learn to master your feelings and understand what you're feeling and allow it to be, processed correctly, instead of something that you just
but how do you do
have
that
no
in
control
terms
of
process? How do you condition that or
we've had
teach
two
that?
examples recently in Star Wars. One is the High Republic, and two is the Acolyte. And I think the Acolyte is probably a cautionary tale, because all of a sudden the attachment ramps up and it like leads to disaster, and we sort of see how that goes. But the High Republic story is Elzar Mann and Avar Kriss. You know, they actually do navigate it perfectly. I mean, so far. But you know, they're like, yes, we're in love with each other, and yes, we're gonna have sex with each other, and we're gonna do it. But it's like, it's about like acknowledging that you know, they can't sacrifice the greater good, right? This is the moral compass that I think really needs to come back in Star Wars in a big way. The fight against good versus evil. This is like a major pillar, and I think, you know,
dude, the Jedi should have the best relationships.
Yeah,
they should
have the
best time. Like, it is so bizarre.
There we go. That's for Rey.
Themselves of attachment when it's just like they know that they are selfless at the end of the day, so that they should spend time with each other and find enjoyment where they can, because I mean, if it indeed remains a sort of peacekeeping organization that wants to help based on its sort of martial prowess, right? Like it's going to train warriors essentially. You'd think that they would remain sort of not a police force, but sort of a peacekeeping force if done right in the galaxy. That there was peace for 1,000 years, right? Like the Jedi fell, but they did keep peace for a very long time, that's pretty good. Like we knocked the Jedi a lot, and I like to throw that out there.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to 100% serve light and life, being peacekeepers, it's like that's your moral compass. You need to, like, that's what trumps your personal feelings.
You know,
they
some
totally
ale, some Carillion ale in the evening and a glass of Tanneray and sort of unwind after a diplomatic mission.
Maybe a little heavy petting. Yeah, no, they can do all that. That's what I mean. It's like you can do all that as long as you keep your focus on your mission. And I think that's, I mean, I'm not doing a great job, but that's essentially paraphrasing where Elzar Mann and Avar Kriss arrived. Was sort of like, we're going to do this, but like we can never sacrifice the mission for us. That is selfish, and that is, you know, that's not following the Jedi way. And you know, so maybe that's where Rey goes. It's like not hedonism, but it's just like, hey, fall in love, be in love, but like this is above all. This is what we have to do. It's like just really, really moral people just following that moral compass. And there's a lot of room for some grimy situations in there where you're like, what's the right thing to do, right? Because it's tough to follow that, but so that could be plenty of adversity for the series, which I'm hoping will be a 3-movie series. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of. I
also think not everyone needs a lightsaber. Like
absolutely not.
And I think like the ironic part of all of this is that Star Wars is a science fiction, space fantasy sort of commercial juggernaut that needs to keep throwing out stories of epic warriors doing epic action. It needs to happen forever. And so Jedi essentially like are always going to be crafted into like lethal warriors essentially. And how do you manage that? How do you stabilize a system wherein there are many of those like lethal warriors who, if they turn, that's a major problem, right? And that's, I mean, who's to say what the plot is of the next 3 movies they do that are sort of post Skywalker saga, but like Apprentice turned bad. It seems like the only way the sort of like the corruption begins again is sort of within, because we know that they just conquered the dark side in totality, essentially. Yeah.
But they've already shown that they can do fantastic shows and movies that don't really rely on a lightsaber. Just look at Andor and look at Rogue One. Right?
Exactly.
There's like barely any light. The only lightsaber you see in Rogue One is right at the end, and Solo as well. Yeah, there's plenty of chances for them to tell those stories, and I agree with you. I think not every Jedi needs a lightsaber. Like maybe it's one of those things like you learn to build one, but like I don't need it if I'm going to be a researcher.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I might only like maybe somebody has one just to cut down some trees on their way to go
it's a
investigate a ruin somewhere.
It's such a fun creative direction, like to me that's like maybe one of the most interesting things you could do with sort of the Rey films, in that her lightsaber is incredibly sacred, and it's something that she sort of keeps for just will only break out in very dangerous circumstances. And then maybe to get a lightsaber and to be a warrior, on par with Rey and in her tutelage directly, it's like you have to do a trial that is like something I wanted to see as a fan for the longest time. It's sort of like what it takes to sort of like do all these wall runs and a crazy sort of room that's collapsing on itself with all types of cool sort of obstacles that someone has to jump through and jump on, just to sort of like an Olympian sort of reach the end of a course that's going to bring them to their wits' end, that's going to challenge them emotionally, like we talked about. So you get to see them at their worst, at rock bottom, and trying to figure out this puzzle. And it's like that's when you expose someone as sort of being vulnerable to corruption or not. Essentially, that's how Rey is basically like, okay, you can be a warrior, but you have to pass a very rigorous test to get a lightsaber. And like a lightsaber is a sacred item now. Like if you make a lightsaber a sacred item in these new films, that is a very cool decision in my opinion.
To kind of feed off of that, I almost feel like those trials in particularly should also help her decide what kind of role the Jedi should be. Where maybe they do better at the puzzle.
It's a sorting hat.
Exactly. Maybe they do better at the puzzle elements, or they identify something that helps them along the way, and they become more of a researcher. Maybe they're brute force maybe they brute force their way and they're like adept with the Force, and they wall run and they jump, and it's like no easy for them, and maybe they become like a frontline person.
Like they get a lightsaber, right? Like that's like to get the lightsaber almost to do that fusical feat and all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's part of the sorting hat process, right? It's like, if you run it the right way, it's like, okay, nope, you're a warrior. So to add on to this more, and like running back to like the beginning of her training, my experience with the EU, and correct me if I'm wrong, again, this would be a good Adam thing because he's just finished reading the whole thing. But, my experience was that, Luke was a little loosey-goosey with training, and it was like a little kumbaya, sort of like Woodstock 69, just like, hey, let's hang out and learn the Force, bro.
Insight on Luke's training. Like, I am like, you're talking about just from what you get with Rey, essentially?
No, but let me finish the statement. That's my experience, is that Luke was a little loose with his training. But like, I would love if Rey was
it's pretty strict when he tries to go take out one of his students. That's pretty it's pretty stringent in my opinion, but all right.
Okay, but that's
the opposite of Woodstock 69. That's pretty chill.
I'm speaking more of like expanded, like old EU, expanded universe. That's kind of how he ran it. And it's like, obviously new EU, it's like, whatever. But even in like what we saw in the Kylo Ren, it was like kind of loose. My point is that I would like Rey to run a tight ship, and where it's like from the beginning. And I have a question, a serious question for you about this. But like, I would like to see her be very regimented. And it's like, this is going to what Grant says too. It's like you have to earn holding a lightsaber, so it's like she's gonna make you earn that right, and she's not gonna let any, it's like if she has a whiff that you're gonna fall off the path, you are not there anymore. And but maybe she has great teachers. Finn's gonna be there hopefully, and he's gonna be a great teacher and all those things. But Mike, so if that's the thing, and I would like you guys to comment on that to see if you think the same thing, but do you think Rey continues the practice of taking infants from families that are Force sensitive?
I hope not.
Why not?
No, it's bizarre, and even in the Acolyte, watching a character go through sort of trying to find a pupil in such a sort of obsessive way was actually just incredibly shocking to me. And
that was a bit of an outlier, I would argue. He was on one.
Yeah,
he was just like. Soul was on one, and he just was like, I figured it out.
It would have been incredible if they just made the planet a little weirder, like everyone just sort of like it's a little bit in a mental fog or something. Like
I do think that if you're going to, the reason I'm against taking the babies is because if you're going to go into the realm of yes, you need attachments at this point, your biggest attachment is always going to be your family.
Yeah.
So I feel like it should be at some point their decision to be like, hey, the Jedi scouted me, or they're here, and I want to go with them. Almost like what Osha did, but without, Soul being obsessive the entire time. Because they should be able to make that decision, because it also gives them more reason to want to serve the Force and protect their family, because they have that attachment.
I like that, but it's so messy. Like at what age? At 8? At 9? Like when are they ready to make that decision? Like, you're ultimately still giving it to a child, and it's like, really, then your parents should be making the decision for you.
Yeah, I don't really like.
Even if you're sorry, I'll let you talk in a second, Grant. Even if you accept if that happens and it's like an OSHA situation, it's like, great, you want to be a Jedi, we're gonna make you a Jedi. You still have all the attachments that come along with it that you need to sort of unlearn, and not, I guess. All right, so relearn, right? We're gonna rephrase what attachment means, but it's like you have to cross that bridge, and maybe that becomes easy to do in the new, in the new canon, in the new Jedi Order. But it seems like that's a tough row to hoe. Like, is the more attachment you have, the more bad habits you've picked up from life, because life is hard. Instead of being indoctrinated and trained, really not indoctrinated, we'll just say trained from a young person to be a devout peacekeeper that just serves others.
I think what you're talking about is going to be the basis of these films. Like, I think they're going to Game of Thronesify and make it slightly more make it more complex, essentially, by showing the full spectrum of sort of Force users, right? Like, I would love if Rey has a contemporary character, around her age, who's basically like older, didn't go through the Order, but like is Force sensitive, and sort of what that means for someone who is Force sensitive, who's just outside of it all. I love, I want Finn's story to continue. I want his whole like journey with the Force and what his relationship with the Force is like. And then maybe a young coming of age like kid who's just like, I'm that story, right? Like the central, story of Star Wars, right? Like that too, right? And then Rey, so you have like all these different, you can look at the Force through a prism, essentially, and see it through all these different ways. And I think so. What you just talked about, and sort of like, people bringing younger people in, so you can fully indoctrinate them, and they don't have the conditioning of sort of the traumas of a life lived, right? And sort of teach them from the beginning.
So maybe it's like a 1 or a 0, right? It's like you're either like you're getting them at birth or you're getting them whenever, but it just doesn't matter. And it's just like, listen, come to us. We will train you. You will be tested harder than you've ever. It'll be like the Navy SEALs. Like, you'll be tested harder than you ever have, and then we will help you through your next thing. But I mean, I think Finn is a perfect example, and I just like saw a scene in my mind that I desperately want to see now. It's like Finn could be one where it's like it didn't really seem like he had like precognitive abilities. He had this sort of like mental sense, picturing, I don't know, like strategic like ability and
his sensory. He used sensory in that list you just listed off.
But it would be really cool if, like, for a whole movie, a whole 3 movies, it's sort of like he never is holding his lightsaber. He's never, like, maybe you even see it for a second, but he never uses it. He's always in different positions. But then that one time he has to use it, and he's awesome.
But to go back to the age thing, you kind of just proved my point, Puri, because you want Finn to be a Jedi. Finn is much older.
Yeah.
He's making the decision himself. Luke made his decision when he was older, because he wasn't allowed to make the decision previously. And Luke is probably the best of the Jedi, as far as we know. Right.
Yeah, you guys convinced me. But I wanted to raise a question.
I think
I'm with you. I think that's much more fun.
Did you think it was the right way to kind of bring people in before there's the conditioning and stuff like that?
I just got that. I got kind of excited about like a really rigorous type A Rey, like really just like, nope, we're not making any mistakes, and she's going to be cherry picking concepts and like ways to raise Jedi, but I think that might be one that she sticks with, where it's like, I'm not messing around with anyone with.
When you say cherry picking, I think you're keying into something. I think Rey does. I think there's stories and legends tossed around the galaxy and whispers and that travel around the edges of the galaxy that she hears about, right? And there's young people, and there's people of all ages basically like doing incredible things, and sort of maybe doing some sort of miracle in front of people, and then she hears about it, and then her recruiting someone is also incredibly poetic, because she was always just looking for someone, some help, as something awakened inside of this force kind of awakened inside her. For her to be the ultimate mentor character is actually key to these new films. It's like she almost has to be the ultimate teacher that you wish you had, essentially, because she's thrown, from Han to Leia to Luke.
And all these listening to myself say that, I realized I defeated my own point, right? Like, Rey was like 17 or something, and it was the Force Awakened. So it's like, you can't plan these things, right? No. You don't know from birth, and it's also cruel to take a child for it. Like, it makes so much sense for her to just be like, wherever you are, we're here.
I also think that I don't see Rey being the type of person who goes through that rigorous kind of training to bring them up from little kids, because kids in particular do not adapt well to pressure like that.
I get.
Yeah, but look at all those cute kids in the Jedi Temple and stuff. I guess that's just like, that'll be from a different time. They used to do that, But they were just cute, and they're like, yeah, we want to learn and help people. It'll be super. And, but most kids, no, not at all.
Yeah,
I think it's a idealistic idea to have a lot of Jedi kids, right, training in the ranks and sort of learning all the different abilities of the Jedi and the in all the different schools of thought and knowledge and stuff like that. That's so cool as like a giant institution, but I have a feeling this should be a little smaller, like a little bit more exclusive. Like it's not going to be a big institution by the time we catch up with Rey. I imagine it'll be. I don't know.
Rumors
it's interesting.
Actually, not rumors from Daisy Ridley's mouth. There will be a time jump. And
okay, so maybe it could be.
I don't know if she said specifically 10 years, but I think it's going to be 10 years, which is actually like in real time how much older she's got since her last movie or whatever.
Yeah.
Or the first movie or whatever. But So who knows? But I love that, Grant. I love the idea that it's like they still don't, their ranks are not large. It's a handpicked few.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. And I think someone has to fall, honestly. Like, I just don't know how you do these movies without a cool dark side character of some kind. And then is Rey Palpatine ever going to play ever? Is the Palpatine-ness of Rey ever going to come back into play?
I hope not.
I hope so.
Are we done with this?
I feel like, personally, I think that her being able to constantly stay above the Palpatine-ness makes her a better Jedi.
Yeah, I think it would just be kind of like, you could do a thing where it's like an alcoholics like parable, where it's sort of like you're never rid of it. It's a choice you have to make every day, and for her it's even harder.
Well, that's what they say in all the recent novels, right? In the Jedi, the main sort of Jedi teaching is
Elzar
that,
Man, it's like
goodness is a choice, and it's a choice that you make every moment of every day.
So it could be that much harder for her, especially how powerful she is. She could be even more powerful 10 years later than she was when she defeated Sidious. I hope she's stupid powerful.
Well, remember,
otherworldly. She can do
lightning,
anything,
right? So we saw her use lightning on the ship, right?
Like, doesn't trust herself around other Jedi, sort of like uber powerful.
I bet you the sort of I mean, we're running a little long now at this point, but I haven't noticed. Conversation. I absolutely love this conversation, but something I always like, my fan theory for Luke and Kylo before The Last Jedi came out, Episode 8. I always thought that Luke sort of like either like force choked or like used lightning or something on Kylo Ren. Like, I always thought that moment would be such a feast for your eyes and sort of be an echo to Vader or something. Probably force choke, right? Like, to be a complete echo of his father, like just a real darkness taking over, a real tide of darkness. But I would love that for a Rey scene and just make it lightning like that. To me, it's like if Rey broke out lightning and it caused the fall of a student, like that is, I'm in. Like, that works every time. Like, there's no rugs to be pulled there. I'm just happy with that. Works. Like, I'm just there. You know, that stuff is just awesome. It's opera. You know, it's just complete opera.
For like the 5th time, I want to reference the Lego Star Wars Summer Vacation special that was done, and which is like the only in there, totally not canon, by the way, but like they said Rey was looking for Force artifacts, and this is like sort of after Rise of Skywalker, and Finn was looking for potential Force sensitive pupils for the school, and that was sort of their roles. But like that'd be pretty cool, where it's like you know, Rey's the dean, but she's not around very much because she's doing arcane things and like
that is
ancient wizard
archetypal
things.
sort of like wizard dean thing though. They're always like gone. They have the biggest office in the university, but they're always gone.
I'm here for that though, bro. Like I'm so here for that.
Yeah.
You know, and like she shows up and everyone's like, whoa, she's here, and she doesn't even know she's there. She doesn't even see anybody because she's on like another thing. Like,
well, that's another way you could get a whole dark side storyline too, is artifact based sort of dark side entities and characters.
Yeah, that's like, dude.
Okay, let's go.
I just love like dungeon diving Star Wars. Like,
let's go, Rey Dungeon Diver.
That's what I mean. It's all that. But she's unlocking stuff like almost like Afro, where it's like, whoa, like you have no idea the Force.
And then she's
meddling with.
Yeah, and then she's like a bulwark, and she's just like pushing it back, and she can fight against almost any obstacle or any challenge. She sort of rises to it.
It's getting dodgy.
I almost kind of want that to be like Finn's job though, because I feel like Rey. It would be more fun for me to see Rey focus on the Jedi Order and what she's building, but to see Finn be like an Indiana Jones type going on temple runs and finding artifacts. Oh my gosh, that would be so good.
Listen, don't listen to the Star Wars Lego Summer Vacation show for canon. That's fine. But no, I do love that. I would like that too. But I don't know. Rey's they're all awesome characters. And yes, I don't want to leave Finn. Right. I don't want to have Finn babysit. Like maybe he started that way, but like maybe it's Rey and Finn that are doing this together, and they're a 2-person team, and like, you know, that's kind of cool that like the two like leaders are doing it, and there's someone else, new character that's sort of like helping to teach the new students. That would be fun. It's going to be awesome. I mean, really excited for Dawn of the Jedi with Mangold, but really, it's this Charmine movie with Rey that's gonna have the coolest stuff, because we don't know what's gonna happen.
Charmine Obaid Chinoy, I cannot wait.
Thank you.
It's gonna be incredible. Just to see Rey in the future and what she does with the Order. But well, I'm sure we'll return to this topic on future episodes. So.
We do most episodes, I think.
Yeah, we'll get back to Rey and the Order and sort of how it can be led differently, what can happen there. But man, I can't stop thinking about Finn as Indiana Jones now. Like just as it's just like temple
so cool.
tomb raiding. Like, oh my goodness, that is just too cool.
Yeah, it would be a lot of slapstick too. Like he's not quite as smooth yet, but like it would be great because he does bumble a bit. He doesn't he's not full Jar Jar, but he's got his moments. He's looking pretty heroic in Rise of Skywalker, so maybe he's made the leaps.
Yep. Sweet.
All right.
Cool. Pretty cool to just know that those films are being worked on. Like it's very exciting. Yeah,
and so many in different eras. It's great. We're still a bunch of years away, barf, but gives us plenty of time to talk about them, which will be great.
Yep.
Right on, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jason.
It's a treat.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.
Yeah, we love it, man. Definitely go play Star Wars Unlimited. It is a really sweet card game. If you've never played a card game like this before, it is very accessible. It just says what to do on the cards. It's very simple. I had a fantastic teacher in Jason. You might be able to find other good teachers online. Follow the Jonathan path. Or people around you, but it's an addictive game, and it's tough to get cards now because it's so popular. People are just swooping them up. So get in on the phenomena. It is phenomenal. Yeah. Okay. And and other things. Next week, I think we're going to talk about more comics. I believe.
I think so.
We have a couple more comics to cover.
Vader and something else.
This is where Adam would come in handy again. But yes, definitely Vader. And Black, White, and
Darth
Red.
Maul, yes. Darth
Black,
Maul.
White, and Red.
Yes.
Yeah, so a Sith-filled comic coverage next week, and more stuff too. I'm sure Adam, after listening to this, will want to chime in on what we talked about. So you're great. Thank you so
Graceful
very
landing
much.
of the Starfighter.
Yeah, indeed. Sometimes it's a little Han Solo-esque. Yeah, just who needs to put down landing gear, right? Anyways, thanks for joining us in the cantina tonight. Hope you enjoyed your beverages, and we'll talk to you again next week on Cantina Chronicles.
Nice. I would use the restroom so bad.